So we are going to set up an intruder detection system, and this is exactly how this is going to work. We are going to stream data from our webcam, and we are going to set up these two systems we have over here, this one and also this one over here. This one over here is going to consume data from the video stream from the webcam, and it's going to back up absolutely every single frame it receives from the webcam. Remember, this is an intruder detection system, so we definitely need to back up absolutely all the data. And then this other system we have over here is going to take care of the actual intruder detection, right? We're going to have an EC2 instance which is going to be getting frames from this video stream continuously, right? It's going to be downloading frames continuously, and we are going to be using Amazon recognition in order to detect people. Because remember, by the way this is going to be set up, there should not be a person in the video whatsoever, right? So we are going to use Amazon recognition in order to detect people, and if we have detected at least one person, we know for sure we have detected an intruder. And we're also going to use DynamoDB and S3, because once we have detected a person, we want to save all this information, and we're going to save it into S3 and DynamoDB. And also we are going to use SNS, because once we have detected a person, once we have detected an intruder, we want to send a notification to the user immediately so the user knows what's going on, right? And we are going to send a notification to the user's email. So this is exactly a project in which we will be working today. This is an amazing project to get more familiar with AWS. So let's get started setting up this project up and running. So let me show you this GitHub repository. This is the GitHub repository I created for this tutorial, and if I scroll down you can see that the first step over here is setting up the producer. So in order to set up the producer, we are going to use the Amazon Kinesis Video Streams Producer SDK, and in this GitHub repository you are going to see some very detailed instructions on how to set up the producer depending on your OS, right? If I go back to my GitHub repository, the one I created for this tutorial, you can see we also have some instructions over here, but this is only going to work if you are an Ubuntu user. So if you use Ubuntu, then you can just go ahead and execute all the instructions you have over here. But in any other case, please take a look at this other GitHub repository to the Amazon Kinesis Video Stream Producer SDK, and you are going to see exactly how to make it work depending on your OS. If you're a Windows user, or depending on your specific OS, you are going to see exactly how to set it up over here. So once you have completed this process, and once you have set up this producer, then you are going to continue with the next steps. So I'm just going to assume you have completed all this process, and I'm going to continue with the next step, which is going to Kinesis Video Streams and create a new video stream. So I am going to AWS and I'm going to type Kinesis Video Streams. Then I'm going to click here on Create Video Stream. The video stream name will be something like Intruder Detection Tutorial Video Stream. And then I'm going to scroll all the way down and I'm going to click here on Create Video Stream. Now the video stream has been created, and we can continue with the next step in this process, which is going to IAM and create a new user with these permissions, right? So I'm going to type IAM, and I'm just going to click here on IAM. Then users, create user. The username will be Intruder Detection Tutorial User. Okay, I'm going to click on next. Then attach policies directly, and we are going to attach this policy, which is Amazon Kinesis Video Streams Full Access. This one over here, and I'm going to click on next. Create user. And we have created this user, so we are ready to continue. Then we are going to select the IAM role we created, and we're going to go to security credentials, and we're going to create access keys. So we are over here, intruder detection tutorial user, security credentials, and then we are going to create access keys. We're going to select local code. I understand the above recommendation, and then click on next. create access key, and these are the access keys we have created, so we can continue. Now let's get back here, and you can see that the next step in this process is executing the following command. And this is the command we are going to use in order to produce data, right? In order to stream data. So I'm just going to copy and paste this command over here. Remember, in order to make this work, you necessarily need to set up and you necessarily need to configure everything that's related to the producer, right? Otherwise, this is not going to work. So I'm going to assume you have already completed all this process of setting up the producer, so we can just continue executing this instruction. So the only thing we need to do is to make a few edits, and the edits we need to do are over here. The access key, we're going to copy and paste the access key we have just created. Then secret key, we are going to do the same. We're going to copy this value over here, and we're going to paste it over here. Then region name, we are going to do something like this. In my case, this is going to be US East 1, but this obviously depends on your specific region, right? On the region in which you have created these video streams. You can see that in my case, this is US East 1, but it is going to depend on your region. So let's continue. Then the other thing we need to set up over here is the stream name, which I'm just going to copy and paste this stream name over here. I'm going to add some quotes. I'm not sure if the quotes are needed or not. I don't remember, but I'm just going to do it just in case. And this is going to be pretty much all. So I'm just going to copy and I'm going to paste it over here. Just 1 minute. In order to make it work, I need to execute these last instructions over here. This is something I have to run absolutely every single time I use the producer. So just 1 minute. Okay, now everything should work just fine. Okay, now I am streaming data from my webcam, and if I go here to the video streams I just created and I click here on media playback, you can see that this is the stream of data. This is the data I am streaming through this producer. So everything seems to be working just fine. Now let's continue with this process. I'm going to terminate this process like this, and then the next step in this process will be setting up this consumer over here, which is going to take care of the backup, right? Remember, we are going to set up two consumers. One of them is going to back up all the information we get from the producer, and the other one is going to do all the intruder detection. So this is how we're going to do now. Let's get back to the GitHub repository over here. And then the only thing we need to do is to execute all the instructions we have over here. So the first one is going to S3 and create an S3 bucket. So we are over here. I'm just going to type S3, something like this, S3, and I'm going to click here. Going to click on create bucket, and this will be something like intruder detection tutorial bucket. Okay, I'm going to scroll all the way down and I'm going to click on create bucket. Now I'm going to open the bucket I just created, which is this one, and I'm going to create a new directory which is going to be called backup, and you're going to see why in a few minutes. Create folder, and that's pretty much all for now. Now let's get back here and let's see what's the next step in this process. Now we need to go to EC2 and we need to launch a T2 medium instance. So let's do that. I'm going to type EC2. I'm going to click on launch instance. Then the instance name will be something like intruder detection tutorial consumer 1 backup. Okay, we're going to launch this EC2 instance with Ubuntu, and this will be a T2 medium, something like this. Okay, Then I'm going to select my key pair. Remember, if you do not have a key pair, this is the time to create a new key pair. But in my case, I'm just going to select my key pair. And I'm going to launch it with 8 GB. So everything else will be just the same. I'm going to click on Launch Instance. Okay, so we have launched this EC2 instance, and now let's see what's the next step in this process. Now we need to go to IAM and we need to create a new access role for the EC2 instance. So I'm going to type IAM, and let's get back to IAM again. So we create a new access role. I'm going to click on Create Role, AWS Service EC2, and then click on Next. I'm going to attach these two policies, which are Amazon Kinesis Video Streams Full Access and Amazon S3 Full Access. So I'm going to start with this one. And then click on Next. The role name will be something like Intruder Detection Tutorial EC2 Backup Role. And then click on Create Role. The role has been created, and now let's get back to the EC2 we have launched over here, and now we need to attach this role we created into this EC2 instance. So I'm going to select this EC2 instance, and I'm going to click on Actions, Security, and then Modify IAM Role. And I'm going to select the role we have just created, which is this one. Then click on Update IAM Role. And this is going to be pretty much all. So we have created the access role, and we have also attached this access role to the EC2 instance. Now let's get back here to this EC2 instance, and now it's time to SSH into the EC2 instance. So this is how we're going to do. We are going to copy this value, which is the public IPv4 DNS, and then the only thing we're going to do is something like this: SSH-i, the location of my key pair, and then Ubuntu at this value we have just copied over here. Going to type yes. And now we need to execute all the instructions we have over here. So the first one is sudo apt update. So I'm just going to press enter, and we're going to wait a couple of minutes. Okay, now we need to install virtual env. Remember, every time you work with Python, it's always a very good practice to create a new virtual environment. So let's start by installing virtual env. Going to press enter, and now it's time to create a new virtual environment. And then the only thing I'm going to do is to activate this virtual environment. Then we are going to clone our repository, which is the one we are going to use in order to set up this consumer. And let me show you this repository first. I'm just going to copy and paste this value over here. Paste. Okay, so this is the Amazon Kinesis Video Streams consumer library for Python. This is the official SDK, the official Amazon SDK. So this is the one we are going to use in order to set up this consumer, and using this repository is going to make the process much more simple. And let me show you. So let me get back here. We have already cloned this repository, and now the only thing we need to do is to cd into this repository. And then we are going to install all the requirements. So copy and paste. Okay, now the next step in this process will be to edit the region name and the stream name. And in order to do that, I am going to open a file which is KBS consumer library example. This is the file we are going to use in order to set up this consumer. So I am going to edit the region name, which in my case is US East 1. Something like this, US East 1. And then the stream name, which I'm going to copy and paste from here, right? Paste, okay. And that's pretty much all. Let's see what's the next step in this process. And now we need to add the backup functionality, right? Because this is the repository we are going to use as a baseline in order to build our consumer, but obviously we will need to do some things in order to add this functionality we need in this consumer, which is doing all the backup, right? So I'm just going to open this file again, and this is what we are going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is to create an S3 client, because remember, we are going to upload all these backups into S3, so we definitely need a new S3 client. And this is how I'm going to do. S3 client will be Bodo3, which is already imported over here, and this will be Bodo3 client S3. Okay, and now I'm going to scroll all the way down until this function over here, which is onFragment arrived, and then on this function I'm going to scroll down this section over here, which is just going to take the fragments we are receiving from the producer and is going to write these fragments to disk as videos, right? It's going to write every single fragment as an MKV video. So this is the section in which we are going to be working now, and this is going to be very, very simple. The only thing I'm going to do is to uncomment these lines over here, and this is going to take care of writing all these fragments to disk, right? So I'm just going to uncomment all these lines, and then once we have saved all these fragments, the only thing I'm going to do is to call s3 client.upload file. I'm going to take the file we have just saved, which is in this location over here, and then I'm going to specify the bucket name, which is the bucket we have just created, which is this one. And then the object key, which is where in this S3 bucket we want to save this file. And this is going to be something like backup. And then we are going to call this file according to the fragment file name, right? So we're just going to take the file name and we are going to upload this file into the S3 bucket over here. Okay, and this is going to be pretty much all. So remember, we are making some edits in this function over here, which is onFragment arrive, and this is the function we are going to execute every time we receive a new fragment of data from the producer. Now let's see if it works. So I'm just going to execute this file like this, Python, and then the file name, which is KBS consumer library example. I'm going to press enter, and you see everything is working just fine. But obviously we are not receiving anything because we are not streaming anything either. So what I'm going to do now is to stream data. I'm going to open this OR terminal and I'm going to stream data from the producer. So this terminal over here is the producer and this OR one over here is the consumer. Maybe I can say it like this. So I'm going to stream data from my webcam and then I'm going to receive this data from this consumer, right? We need to wait a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds until the process has started. And now the only thing I'm going to do is to execute the consumer. Okay, and we got an error. Let's see why we get an error. I'm going to stop the producer as well. No such file or directory. Oh, I forgot to edit the directory name. So I'm going to nano KBS This is the directory in which we are going to save all the fragments of data, right? So I'm just going to call this directory something like fragments. Okay. I'm going to close this file and then obviously we need to create this directory, otherwise this is not going to work. So mkdir fragments. Okay, now everything should work just fine. I'm going to set up the producer again. I'm going to start the producer again, and then once we have started producing data, I am going to start the consumer. Something like this. Okay. Okay, now everything seems to be working just fine. But now let's go to the S3 bucket we created, and now we should be receiving all the fragments of data, right? You can see that these are all the files we are receiving from the consumer. So I'm just going to stop this process over here, and I'm also going to stop the consumer. And now let's see the fragments we have received. You can see we have received 19 objects. So I'm just going to download one of them, and we're going to see how it looks like. I'm going to save the file here. I'm going to open the file, and this is the file we have produced. So this is basically the video I am streaming from my webcam. So everything seems to be working just fine. Now I am going to continue. Let's see what's the next step in this process. And now we need to set up the second consumer, right? The one that's going to take care of the intruder detection. Everything that's related to the first consumer is ready. So we are making a lot of progress, and now let's see how we can set up this consumer. And you can see that the first step is going to S3 and create an S3 bucket. But we are not really going to create a new S3 bucket only to receive all the data from this other consumer, but I think the best thing we can do now is just create another folder, right? We can use exactly the same S3 bucket, but we can just upload the data into another folder. That's the best thing we can do now. So the folder name will be something like intruder detection. Okay, and this is where we are going to upload all the detections. Let's just call this folder detections. That's going to be much simpler. Create folder. So this is where we are going to upload all the data we are going to send from this new consumer. Now we need to go to DynamoDB and create a new table. Remember, we are here, right? We have created a new folder for this S3 bucket. Now we're going to create a new DynamoDB table. So let's go to DynamoDB. And I'm going to click on create table. The table name will be something like intruder detections, something like that. And then the partition key will be fragment number, and the sort key will be frame number. Okay. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click here on customize settings, and I'm just going to choose on demand, right? And then I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to click on create table. So this is the table we have created, and now we can continue to the next step in this process, which is going to SNS and create a new topic. So let's go to SNS. Now we are here. We're going to create this SNS. So I'm going to type SNS. And I'm just going to create a new topic like this. I'm going to click on create topic. I'm going to select standard. This is very important because we want to add a new subscription, which is an email, right? Remember, we are going to send notifications to an email. There's this picture here, which is a cell phone, but no, we are going to use an email. So we definitely need to choose this option over here, which is standard. This topic name will be intruder detection tutorial SNS. Okay, and that's pretty much all. So I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to create topic. Later on we are going to make some changes. Over here, but for now let's just leave it like this, and let's just set everything up, and then later on we're going to make some changes. So we have created a new topic, and the next step in this process is select the topic you created and create a new subscription. So let's go here, and I'm going to click on create subscription. The protocol will be email, and the endpoint will be hello at Computer Vision School, which is this YouTube channel's email. So let's continue. I'm going to click on create subscription. Then obviously we will need to confirm this subscription. So I am going to open my email, and I'm going to click on a link I have received from AWS in order to confirm this subscription. Over here you can see I have received this email, and I'm just going to click here on confirm subscription. Okay, the subscription has been confirmed, and now we can continue with the next step in this process. Let's go over here. Now we have created a new subscription. We have confirmed this new subscription as well. And now we need to go to S3 and we need to create a new event notification, because remember, this is the project we are setting up. So every time we upload a file into this S3 bucket, every time we upload a file into this directory we have created, which is detections, we are going to trigger a notification to SNS, and this is going to send the notification to our email. So we need to set up this event notification over here, which is going to take care of triggering this SNS topic every time we upload a file into the S3 bucket. So let's go to the S3 bucket. I'm going to click here on the bucket name, and then I'm going to click on properties. I'm going to scroll all the way down until this section over here, which is event notifications, and I'm going to click on create event notification, and the event name will be trigger SNS on object upload. Okay, then the prefix, this is very important. We are going to trigger this SNS only in this case, only for the files we upload with this prefix, right? Because remember, we don't want to trigger this notification on absolutely every single file, but we only want to trigger this notification for all the files we upload into this directory. So let's continue. I'm going to select all object create events, and then I'm going to scroll the way down, and I'm going to choose the SNS topic we created, which is this one over here, intruder detection tutorial SNS. I click on save changes, and you can see that we are getting an error, and this is why I told you we were going to get back to the policy, to this SNS policy later on. So I'm going to click here on access policy. Let's see where I can edit this value, maybe over here. I'm going to click here on access policy, and the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this file I have over here, and I'm going to paste it over here. And the only thing I'm going to do is to edit these values over here. For example, resource will be this SNS ARN. This SNS topic ARN, which will be something like this. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it over here. Then the S3 bucket ARN. Let's go to S3, to the S3 bucket we created. And let's just copy and paste the ARN. Something like this. And then this is very important, is the account owner number, right? So if I click here, you can see that my account ID is this value over here. So I'm just going to copy this value and I'm going to paste it over here. And that's pretty much all. Now I'm going to click on save changes. And now if we go back over here and we click again on save changes, now everything should be okay. And now we have created a new event notification. So we are ready to continue with this process. Now the next step in this process will be going to EC2 and launching a T2 medium instance. So let's do that. I am going to instances, and then I'm going to click on launch instance, and this is going to be very similar as we did with the previous consumer. So the name will be something like intruder detection tutorial consumer to intruder detection. Okay, then this will be with Ubuntu. Then I'm going to select T2 medium. I'm going to select my key pair. Then I'm going to scroll all the way down, and that's pretty much all. So I'm just going to click on launch instance. And now the next step in this process is going to AAM, and we need to create an access role for the EC2 instance we have just launched, and we need to attach all these policies. So let's do that. I am going to AAM. This is AAM, so we can just we're here. The only thing I'm going to do is to create role. AWS service. I'm going to click on EC2. Then click on next, and then let's just select all these policies. The first one is video streams full access. Then DynamoDB full access. Then S3 full access. And then Amazon recognition full access. Let me see if DynamoDB. Yeah, I selected the value. So I'm going to click on next, and these are all the policies we have selected, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So everything seems to be okay. Now let's continue. I'm going to click on create role, and the role name will be intruder detection tutorial consumer 2 role, something like that. Okay, and I'm going to click on create role. Now we need to attach this role we created to the EC2 instance we have just launched. So let's get back here to instances, and this is the one we are going to be using now, right? So I'm just going to click here and then actions, security, modify IAM role, and I'm going to select the IAM role we just created, which is something like this, right? Intruder detection tutorial consumer 2 role, update IAM role. So let's see how we can continue with this process. Then we need to SSH into this EC2 instance. So let's get back here, and I'm just going to copy this public IPv4 DNS, and I'm going to do exactly the same as we did with the other EC2 instance. I'm just going to type SSH -i my key pair and then Ubuntu at this value over here, which is the public IPv4 DNS. Type yes. Don't get confused with all the EC2 instances we are launching, right? So you can see that we have 2 dashboards, one of them for the intruder detection tutorial consumer 1, which is going to take care of the backup, and then this is going to take care of the intruder detection. So don't get confused with all these dashboards for all the EC2 instances we are launching, right? Please focus and please pay attention, otherwise this may be a little confusing. So let's get back here. This is the EC2 instance we have just launched. And now let's install all these instructions we have over here. So this is going to be very similar as we did for the other consumer. So I'm just going to execute each one of these instructions one at a time. Okay, now let's continue. Now we need to edit the region name and the stream name the same way we did in the previous consumer. So the only thing I'm going to do is to type nano kbs consumer library example. We are going to work with the same file, right, which is this Python example. So I'm going to edit the region name, which is US East 1, and then the stream name, which will be, I'm over here, no, I think I need to open this dashboard again. So video streams, something like this, and I'm going to click on video streams, and I'm just going to copy and paste this value. Okay, now let's continue. And you can see that the next step in this process will be to add the intruder detection functionality. And this is definitely going to be much more complex as we did over here with the backup functionality, right? The backup functionality was very simple, but in this case, this is going to be a much more complex process. This is going to take some time. So let's get started with this implementation. And the first thing we need to do in this process will be creating the clients we are going to use in order to communicate with S3, DynamoDB, and Amazon Recognition, right? So let's start by doing something like this. I'm going to define a new variable, which is S3 client, and this will be bodo3, which is already imported over here, bodo3.client, and this is S3. Okay, then recognition client, I'm going to call it reco client. This is bodo3.client recognition. And then in this case, I need to specify the region name, which is US East 1. And then I'm going to create another client, which is DynamoDB client. And in this case, I need to create it by calling bodo3.resource DynamoDB and region name equal to US East 1. Remember, in my case, my region name is US East 1, but in your case, it's going to depend on the region you are using in order to create all these products, right? So US East 1, okay. Now let me give you some details on exactly what we are going to implement in this consumer. Remember, the idea of this consumer is to detect all the intruders in the webcam we are going to receive from the producer. And the way we are going to do it is by processing all the frames we are going to receive in these fragments of data. So we are going to take all the frames we received in these fragments of data and we are going to input these frames into Amazon Recognition. And we are going to check if Amazon Recognition has detected a person, right? If Amazon Recognition has detected a person in this frame, then we are going to assume that we have detected an intruder. That's basically what we are going to be doing in this consumer. So let me show you how we are going to do it. I'm going to scroll all the way down. And remember, in the previous consumer, we worked here on this function, which is onFragmentArrived. We are going to work on the same function now, but we are going to work on a different section, which is this one over here, extract frames from fragment as an numpy arrays, right? Remember, in the previous consumer, we were working here on write the fragment to disk as standalone mkb file, but now we're going to work in the section number 4. And basically, we are going to take all the frames from these fragments of data and we're going to process these frames. And actually, we are not going to process absolutely every single frame because it doesn't really make any sense to process absolutely every single frame, right? If the entire idea of this consumer is to detect all the intruders, so if we process one every 30 frames is going to be more than enough, right? We will be processing one frame every second and that's going to be more than enough. So I'm just going to change this value over here and I'm going to set it in 30. So this means we are going to process only one every 30 frames. And we are going to start by converting this frame, which currently is an numpy array, we are going to convert it into a pillow object. So we are going all the way up and I'm going to make 2 imports which are going to be super useful. One of them is from pil import image and the other one from io import bytes io. Okay, now let's scroll all the way down. We will need to install Pillow, otherwise it's not going to work, but we can install Pillow later on. For now, let's focus on all the implementation we are going to do over here. So once we are over here, we are going to say something like this. We're going to call image, which is the object we have just imported, and we are going to call from array and we are going to input this numpy array over here. Remember, the whole idea of using this SDK and to use this Python file as a baseline is because it's going to make our life way easier, right? It's going to make the process much easier because everything is pretty much there. The only thing we're going to do is to write our code on top, but everything is pretty much there. You can see that we are iterating in all the frames and the only thing we're doing is just doing some processing on all these frames, but the existing functionality of this file is going to make our lives much easier. So this is pretty much all, and I'm going to call this object image, and now I am going to define a new variable which is image bytes, and this is going to be bytes IO. And then the only thing I'm going to do is to call image save image bytes format JPEG. So basically, long story short, we are taking this frame and we are just converting this frame into another object which is going to be more useful in order to do what we want to do, right? I'm going to do it later. Okay, let's just continue, and I'm just going to deal with the indentation later, but for now let's continue. And now it's time to call, I'm going to call image bytes get value, and this is going to be image bytes. Remember, the only thing I'm doing over here is converting this frame into another representation, which is going to be better for what comes next. Now I am going to call Rico client, right? This is the client we have created in order to work with Amazon recognition. And this is going to be something like this: Rico client dot detect labels, and we are going to input the image, which is something like this: bytes, image bytes. Okay, and then we are also going to input another value, which is mean confidence, and this is going to filter all of those detections we get with a confidence value lower than 50%, right? We are only going to get those detections with a confidence value which is greater than 50%. And now I am going to fix the indentation like this. Okay, so image and mean confidence, I think we're going to be just fine. We are going to test it later on, but I think we're going to be just fine. So let's continue. We have detected all the labels, all the objects we have in this image, and if we have detected a person, then we know we have detected an intruder, right? So let's see how we can do that. Now we're going to iterate. We're going to call this object response, and we're going to iterate for label in response labels. So we're going to iterate in all the objects we have detected with Amazon recognition, and for every single one of these objects we are going to do something like this: if label name in person, which means if we have detected a person, then we are going to say something like this. So if we have detected a person, in this case, we are going to say something like this. This is where we are going to take this frame and we're going to upload this frame into the S3 bucket, right? So let me show you. We are going to define a new variable, which is going to be red buffer. We are going to convert this frame into bytes. We're going to do something similar as we did over here, but we are going to do it in a slightly different way. So I am going to call cb2 im_encode. Remember, OpenCV, it's a very popular library to work with computer vision. So this is going to be cb2 im_encode. The first parameter will be JPG, and then I am going to input the frame. Then I'm going to define another variable, which is bytes.io, and this is going to be bytes.io, and I'm going to input buffer. Okay. And then the only thing I need to do is to call S3 client and upload file obj. And this is where we are going to upload this file into the S3 bucket. So buffer, the first argument will be, sorry, this is not buffer, this is bytes.io, bytes.io. Then the bucket name, which will be something like this. Intruder detection tutorial bucket. This is the bucket name, the bucket in which we are working with. and then the key, the object key, the location in this S3 bucket where we are going to upload this frame. And this is going to be in detections, and then the file name will be something like this. We are going to have these two values. One of them will be the fragment number, which is this value over here, and then the frame number, and the frame number will be I multiplied by 1 in frames ratio, something like this. Okay, so this is going to take this frame and it's going to upload this frame into the S3 bucket. So I need to fix the indentation, something like this and something like this. Okay, so if in this frame we have detected a person, then we are going to take the frame and we're going to upload the frame into the S3 bucket. So let's just test it one step at a time. Let's take it one step at a time and let's make sure this works properly. So I'm just going to import CB2. I'm going to import it over here, CB2. And now let's see if it works. I'm going to execute it. Oh, I forgot a comma. Okay. Something like this. Okay. Okay, now everything works just fine. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the producer, and then I am going to start this consumer over here, and let's see if it works. Let's see if we don't get any error. Everything seems to be working just fine. If I go back to my S3 bucket, I go to objects, detections. We have some data. Now I'm going to download one of these frames and let's see if everything looks the way it should. Because obviously we are using my webcam, my built-in webcam from my notebook, so we obviously are detecting a person, which is me, and you can see that, yeah, we are sending this frame with me, so everything is just fine. Now there is a very small detail, which is, you can see we are visualizing this frame, but we are not visualizing this frame in the color space we will be expecting. So I am going to do something which is a very small detail, which is converting this frame into another color space, right? I'm going to convert this frame from BGR to RGB, and this is going to take care of fixing this issue we have over here with the colors, right? So let me show you. But again, this is a very small detail. I'm going to do it over here, maybe. Instead of calling NDRI frame, I am going to do CB2 CBT color NDRI frame CB2 color BGR to RGB. Okay, and that's pretty much all. This is going to take care of fixing this issue with the colors. And now we can continue with the next part in this process, which will be setting up this DynamoDB, right? We'll be uploading this data to DynamoDB, because now that we have detected a person and we have uploaded a frame into the S3 bucket, now we need the information of the bounding box, right? We need to know exactly where we have detected this person. So this is how we're going to do. So I'm going over here and I'm going to create a new table, I'm going to create a new variable, which is going to represent my table. So this is going to be called table, and this is DynamoDB client.table. And then remember, the table name was intruders detections. Okay. And now let's scroll all the way down. And the only thing we need to do now, let's do it over here. I'm going to define a new object, which is item data. And this is going to be a dictionary, and we are going to have 3 keys. One of them will be fragment number. Then the next one will be frame number. And then instances, right? So we are going to save the fragment number, the frame number, and then all the instances, all the objects we have detected, all the bounding boxes of all the objects we have detected. And let's do something like this. Frame number will be the same value we have over here. Then frame number will be this value. And then instances will be something like this. Label get instances and then an empty list. And this is going to be pretty much all. Okay, that's pretty much all. The only thing I need to do now is to fix the indentation again. Okay, so we have created a new dictionary with these 3 keys: fragment number, frame number, and instances. So these are all the bounding boxes we have detected in this frame, right? And that's pretty much all. So the only thing we need to do now is to upload this dictionary, to upload this item into the database. And we're going to do something like this. We are going to call the response, and this is table dot put item, and then item data. Okay, that's pretty much all. Then the only thing I need to do is to fix the indentation, and that's pretty much all. So I'm just going to close this file. I'm going to save the changes, and let's see if it works. So I'm going to open this consumer over here. Then I'm going to open the other consumer over here, and then the producer over here. So I'm going to send data, I'm going to stream data, and then I am going to, something is wrong over here. I'm going to launch, I'm going to SSH into this consumer again, the one for backup. Okay. Okay, let's see now. Okay, so we are, no, there's something wrong. Was never closed. Okay, it seems we have an error, and it seems the error is over here because I forgot to close the brackets over here. In the color conversion over here, the only thing I need to do is to add an additional bracket, and that's pretty much all. So let's see now. I'm going to execute the producer and also the consumer. Okay, we got another error, so let's see what's going on. An error occurred when calling the put item operation. Let's see what's wrong. Oh, I see the table name is wrong. This is not intruders detections, but this is only intruder detection. So let's save the changes and let's execute the entire process again. So I'm going to start with the producer and then this consumer over here and then this other consumer over here. Okay, everything is working just fine. And now let's go to the S3 bucket and let's see if we are receiving new data. Okay, this is the current time, so we are receiving new data. And this is detections. And now let's go to backup and let's order. Okay, this is the current time as well. So yeah, we are receiving videos into this directory, which means we are backing up all the information we received from the producer, and also we are receiving data over here. So everything seems to be working just fine. I'm going to stop the producer and also the consumers. And now let's take a look at these frames we have over here. This is the most recent one. I'm going to download the frame over here. And this is me, so everything seems to be working just fine. And then let's go to the other directory and I'm just going to download one of these videos. And you can see that this is basically me. This is a very, very short video of me. So everything seems to be working just fine. And this is pretty much all for this tutorial. So this is exactly how you can set up a system like this. And this is going to be all for today. Remember, every time you work with AWS, absolutely every single product and every single service we use in AWS is not free. So remember to always keep an eye on your cost management console. This is very, very important. So always keep an eye on the costs which are associated with your projects when you work with AWS. This is going to be all for today. My name is Olivia. I'm a computer vision engineer, and see you on my next video.